Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the weekly parenting show tonight on Inspire 105.1 FM. Your host today is myself, Sister Naveed, and joining me for tonight's show are Sister Shabina and Sister Saira. Assalamu alaikum to both of you.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
All is well. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. How are you, Saira?
Alhamdulillah. Walaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. How are you feeling now?
Alhamdulillah, much better. Lost my voice for a bit, but I think there's something going around where people are randomly losing their voice or not,
Yes.
not being too well and getting a cough. And then it became a cough, and inshallah, I think
Alhamdulillah.
I've
Well, now I
recovered.
can hear you well. So Alhamdulillah, you've recovered.
Yeah, inshallah. How are you? How are the boys? Are they okay?
Yes, Alhamdulillah. Getting on with life.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Especially you two, alhamdulillah, having two maths teachers on tonight. So that should be really nice and useful with the facts and figures of family life. Both in secondary schools. How is it? How is the GCSE period for year 11s at the minute, from your opinions? Is it healthy dynamic or quite a stressful dynamic?
I think for myself, I feel a little bit stressed.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I want my students to do well. I want them to pass and do well. So in that sense, I feel a little bit stressed, but it's all the effort that we need to put in, isn't it? And inshallah, give it to Allah.
Inshallah. Well, tonight's topic is healthy family dynamics. So inshallah, talking to you guys from a teacher's perspective there, just as an offshoot, I could feel it. You were sensing it. What about you, Saira? How is it for you at school?
I think we're trying not to stress the kids, but I think they still feel a bit pressure with doing extra, morning sessions, afternoon sessions, like after school sessions. So we tend to do that. But we tend to not to stress them.
Yeah. You try not to, but it's only natural that they do feel it a little bit. And maybe even, like you said, Shabin, the teachers feel it as well, because inshallah, it matters to you that they do well as well, or to the best of their ability.
To be honest, some students, you do need to stress them.
Yeah.
Some students are a little bit relaxed, and that's when you think, okay, no, you need to
feel this.
Get a move on now. Yeah.
You need to feel this. And I agree with that as well, because I think there's too much in society, this laid back, procrastinating, lazy kind of attitude where it's okay. And even if you don't do too well, it's okay. And when you begin like that with the first major thing in your life, which is GCSEs, you wonder, is it ever going to stop? Is that mentality going to change and improve? So it really is, inshallah, motivating them, I think is probably the correct word that we're looking for. Inshallah, to do their best. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim for the listeners out there. Tonight's topic is, as I mentioned earlier, healthy family dynamics. I just want to remind the listeners that you can give us feedback on the show. You can message in, text in any questions that you may have, or any comments that you want to leave on 07779481822. You can also listen to the show back again on YouTube, Inspire FM, or the Inspire FM website, or even on Facebook, Inspire FM. And do feel free to share the show, and do feel free to give us any feedback in the comment section of our shows in any one of those social media networks that you're using, inshallah. So yes, coming to yourselves, Saira and Shabina, when I mentioned this title of healthy family dynamics, a bit of a mouthful, what were your initial thoughts? Whoever wants to go first, what did that mean to you? What does family dynamics mean to you?
I think for me, it's how your household is, family dynamics, how your household is run, what is your foundation, what are you teaching your children, what are you promoting, what are you sort of I think that what are you promoting? I think that to me was like the point for family dynamics.
Yeah,
I think
I like that. Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the things stood out to me a lot is having a strong foundation in Iman. in taqwa, in tawheed. I think that's one of the basics that's the foundation for a family dynamic, an Islamic family dynamic, is are we promoting these sort of things? I think that's what I thought.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there packaged there, which inshallah we will be unpacking to the best of our ability tonight. Sarah, what were your thoughts?
So I thought I researched a bit. As Shabina said, the foundation, I would agree, that came up a lot as well. But when I researched it, it's, the interactions and the patterns within the relationships. So each family has their own unique dynamic. It could be, it could be based on their personalities, their past experiences. What are their foundations? Is there anything that is influencing them? It could be cultural, it could be religious, or what kind of foundation that they have within the family. And, it could be respect, it could be communication. So a lot of different factors there.
Yeah. So you've kind of, given us an understanding of the definition of family dynamics. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that yourself, or Shabina? What does family dynamics actually define to be? Cyrus touched on the beginning of it all.
I think I would like to just add a little bit more. Sure. It could be, how if you have, for example, the elders maybe living with you, the family dynamic might be that, you live with them, you have respect for them, mutual respect for them. It could be that you have boundaries as well, that the way you speak to elders, having boundaries, showing affection as well, and also when making decisions as well. So your parents might be influencing you, the decisions that you make in life.
When we looked at the definition officially as well, of family dynamics, it literally does mean interaction between relatives, people that are related. There's a relationship there, your relation through marriage or blood, and the factors that shape this relationship. And family dynamics can emerge in a physical, emotional, or even from an economic perspective. So is the support healthy? Are the influences healthy? Is the interaction between these relatives healthy? And even when we look to this healthy household, this healthy home or an unhealthy home, I don't know, have any one of you sort of delved into that aspect? What is a healthy home and what's an unhealthy home? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Don't know if Shabina wants to go. I think I've spoken a lot.
I would say, I think one of the key things for a healthy home is obviously open communication, and being able to communicate with each other. The most unhealthy family dynamic is when you can't communicate with each other. I think that's what I just thought of a healthy home and an unhealthy home. And when you were saying about relatives, that as well, when we're able to communicate with our relatives, with our extended family, I think that's very healthy, especially for our young children as well. And if we can't, obviously that's unhealthy.
What about yourself, Sarah? Did you have any thoughts on that aspect?
Yes. So I would say, having constant rules within a family, no choosing, picking, who your favorite child is, maybe, for example, if you've got few, not picking who your favorite is. I think unhealthy would be lack of empathy, not understanding, maybe if your child might be going through, just talking about a child, from a parent view. Also, feeling secure within a family, feeling safe and secure, that you can, talk to your parents or your relatives.
Yeah, even when we look at the actual definition aspect of this, positive home, a healthy home is a positive home, it's a positive environment. Things are demonstrated, or you try to demonstrate them in a positive manner. That positivity could come in the form of even upholding rules of the house. So you're not selective. It's not okay for you to break the rule and have your mobile phone at the dinner table, but as soon as you see one of your kids with it, you absolutely flip, and it becomes a big issue. But rather you uphold these rules yourself. You're demonstrating, and I think a healthy household is going to begin its building process, its foundations upon demonstration, and showing that you yourself are carrying these rules. And misbehaviors are addressed and acknowledged. You don't just address misbehavior of the fellow members of your household, but you have the humbleness to be able to stand up to your own fault, your own mistake, your own misunderstanding, your own mishearing of something, and you can actually do this in a confident manner. So you yourself, as a guardian or a parent, are not shying away from demonstrating that you may have made a mistake, you may have misunderstood, you may have got it wrong yourself, but you're demonstrating in a positive, healthy way how to deal with these issues and circumstances of misunderstanding, miscommunication, or misbehavior that can take place. And I think that you've kind of already touched upon this as well, but boundaries, the boundaries in a positive home, in a healthy home, you have to have boundaries, and the boundaries have to be laid down. And so Shabina, mashallah, you kind of touched upon this right at the beginning. The boundaries come from a foundation, and you have to know, what is the foundation of my household? What is the pillars of the foundation in my household? What are they built upon? And if those foundations are broken, they can be broken by the heads of the house, by the parents themselves. How do we behave? How do we react? How do we respond to that? And how do we uphold these boundaries of these foundations, of tawheed, of iman, of taqwa, of tawakkul? How do we do that? If we say we are an Islamic household, if we say that our boundary is haram and halal, our boundary is wanting to excel even in the mubah of what is more dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even in the makruh, to abstain from these things, because they're displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how do we live these boundaries? How do we live within them, and how do we carry them and showcase them to those around us? And are they foundations within me? And I think this is probably one of the most important questions tonight for our listeners, inshallah, for the parents or the adults of a household and guardians and so on. That, do you actually demonstrate your foundations? Do you live by them if you claim that they are Islamic? That's something that's really important. And similarly, on the contrary, when you look at unhealthy households, it's negative language, it's negative behavior. There's lots of stress, because everybody is hating each other, disliking each other, affected by each other's breathing, language, tone, look, everything about each other stresses each other out. It's a very, very unhealthy household, and we need to question, where has this stress come from? You can have households where there can be, 3 or 4, more, or 2 or 3 children and parents, and everybody kind of lives within their bedrooms. They're your little apartments, and you might not even, you can float in and out of days and weeks, and maybe not communicate to each other as siblings, parents to children, parents and husbands and wives to each other, and you don't necessarily have a good relationship with each other. There's lots of arguments that are taking place. Arguments are never resolved. Respect is never maintained. There's no middle ground for differences. There's no concept of agree to disagree within the mubah, or the areas of where choices are allowed, even from a Shara and an Islamic perspective. and that negative or unhealthy household is full of issues. So you're right. One of you mentioned communication. I've forgotten who, but I wrote that in capital letters because I thought, yep, it's all about communication. It's all about foundations and boundaries. And that is setting the premise for a healthy or an unhealthy family dynamic that's going to run within your household. What are your thoughts, Shabina?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, when you mentioned children can go on and, just lock themselves in their room and do whatever they're doing. I just thought of my own child who tends to lock herself in her room, not lock, but stay in her room. She's revising. And mashallah, she does revise a lot.
Yeah.
And but I also feel there needs to be a break, and you need to come downstairs and spend time with us. That's also important. You can't just be revising in your room. So just because we'll then have that communication, and we'll then build our relationship, because children can get lost in their bedrooms playing with their own toys by themselves. So it's very important that we do take them out and spend time with them, communicate with them, build on our relationship with them, because that's when our communication skills is going to improve and our relationship with them is going to improve.
You're right.
That's what I thought of.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking whilst you're speaking, just before I come to you, Saira, that even within a healthy household, dynamics are constantly changing, aren't they? Like you've just made me think that your first is beginning her, her GCSE curriculum, and she's starting the beginning of her mocks, and already you see a shift in the dynamics within your household. And as a parent or guardian, as the leader of the household, as a shepherd, like Muhammad Sallallahu said, we're all shepherds, and the woman is the shepherd of the household, and a male is also the wali amr of the household. So there's so many layers there to protect the family dynamic. And one of our responsibilities, out of many, is to keep an eye on the dynamics and to think, okay, we're shifting now. We're moving from chapter 1 into chapter 2 to chapter 3 of life. This is the first child going into the realm of GCSEs. This is going to change things. But how do I balance that out? And how do I create that balance? And on that, I remember when my boys separated their bedrooms, because my first began his GCSEs in year 10. And it was an end of an era, and at the same time it was required, it was needed. They'd outgrown sharing a room, and they were going to have different timetables and different realities now. But there's never been a concept of no access into somebody's room. You respect each other's rooms. It's not for you to go in and take things or to move things around or whatever, but as siblings. But the dynamics of how are you going to continue to have that warmth or that closeness or that bond, maybe that's the word I'm looking for, the bond of the family. As the family changes, the dynamics change. How do we sustain and maintain a bond? How do we strike the balance of giving you your free time or your space to revise, and also recognizing maybe Saira and Shabina, and I focus more on you, Shabina, because Saira's kids are quite young at the minute, but and maybe your eldest Saira is also coming into this room. But how do you balance how do you recognize, not balance, but recognize the shifting character of your young adult now? That are they revising? Do they really need that much time? Because in a society where individuality is pushed just to a heightened level, it's quite easy for us and our young adults to want to love isolation and being with, especially with their devices. And because revision is so much on devices these days, that reassurance of, are they actually revising, or are they on their social media, or are they on their platforms? We've talked about controlling those platforms, also physically checking in. So there are dynamics. I don't know.
I mean, there is that aspect. I do physically go check in, and often my daughter would be on FaceTime with her cousin who is also doing her GCSE, and they are both just making notes. They look at each other because I can hear them. They just look at each other. Together, they are revising. So alhamdulillah, I can trust that that's okay. she's doing what she needs to do. But just going back a little bit, when I did separate my daughter's rooms, I remember there was about 6 months into it, there was a shift in their relationship, and they were just bickering a little bit, and they got into an argument, and they just couldn't stand each other. And then I said to them, well, you can't stand each other. I'm not going to have that. And secondly, okay, the eldest is going to move back into the room. And I physically moved her single bed back into the original room, and they were together. I was like, you have to hash it out, deal with your problems. Once I realized that you guys have mended your relationship and it's improved, I will consider in due course when to let you go back into the other room. And it was funny. It was funny, and they weren't expecting it, but alhamdulillah, they recognized and they wanted to be separate, so they made sure that they got along.
Did it work then?
It did work. It did work. And I often say, well, if you can't get along, and you can't get along with each other, or if there's any sort of dispute, like the youngest one is chucking her clothes into her room and she's chucking her clothes into the other room, anything like that, I'm not going to accept. And you can then both share a room and deal with it, because they're very they're very proud of their bedroom. They've decorated it and they've made it their own space.
They personalized it.
It's personalized, so they really like it like that. But if you can't get along, you can join. You can be together then. So that's what I've done.
And it's a good life skill. Sorry, Sarah, I will come to you in a second. But just to build on that, there is a life skill, because in life we will be working with people, studying with people, living with people that we may not necessarily like the character or the personality of, or not necessarily get on with very well. But we need to learn tolerance. We need to learn patience, and we need to learn that we are all different. And your biggest test is family, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have chosen for you your family. You will choose your friends. And that's why in the akhirah you will be with your friends. And this is why we've got to be very careful about who we choose as our friends, because that's our choice. But when it comes to family, Allah chose this for us. And in that, we have to have a lot of effort. We have to have a lot of tolerance and patience, and we have to have the first all recognition of there's no going back, and there's no change in this. You can't change your family. You can't change the person you have married unless you separate your ways, and even then you will probably, if you have children involved, there will be some level of involvement. So you have to learn to, unless the other party is committing haram, an outward haram that is detrimental to you and your family, you have to learn to tolerate and have patience and to get along with people of different views, different backgrounds, and even different beliefs as well. That's part of life. It's part of the whole social system of Islam, whether it's in your personal family life or whether it's in the public domain of mixing in society. Sarah, thank you for holding on there.
No problem. So, I just wanted to add on to Shabina's. My sister's 4 years younger than me. And I remember, as she was describing about, her daughters, that was me and my sister. We used to have we couldn't stand each other at all when we were younger. But now we were, whenever we think about that and, we rewind on what we used to do, we just laugh. But I think we hated each other. That's the word. When we were younger,
what made you hate each other? Do you remember? So what you can share on air? Do you remember you're on air?
It was just some of the stuff he used to do. Like she would leave the towel on the floor. She would, come and just move my stuff from where I left it off. And I'm a OCD. So I just used to think she's very dirty. So, but now if you see her, she's like a madam. She's completely different person. And I used to tell her, so she's got married recently. So I was telling her husband, this was Zara back in the days. I was showing the pictures and he was just like, can't believe it.
So
the thing is,
go on, Shabina.
The thing is,
believe it or not, we're nearly going into a break, but go on, Shabina.
As siblings, we know how to irritate each other. But they just know. They know how to irritate each other, and we did as well. So deliberately.
Yeah. And even this aspect of, habits, behaviors, and differences, just a few points that I put down there whilst you were talking, Saira. They, you might think, God, she's not very clean, or, you don't like the way she works. So, some people call it all.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Enjoy quality and tasty 100% authentic halal Chinese and Thai food from Gao Express. Brought to you by the team behind Top's Pizza in Luton. Choose from all your delicious Chinese and Thai favourites. Then order for delivery or collection from Gao Express in Wellington Street, Luton, Marketplace, Stevenage, and now also on Nightingale Road in Hitchin. Open daily midday till late. Find the number or order online at Gao, that's Gao, express.co.uk, or like Gao Express on Facebook.
Had an accident, a bump, trip or fall? Then you need Claims Specialists, your first choice for accident claims. The Specialist Claims Company on Dunstable Road in Luton. With excellent access to expert solicitors and on a no-win, no-fee basis, Claims Specialists use their 30 years experience to help get you the best compensation possible. For injuries at work, taxi, PCO and private hire incidents, road accidents and vehicle damage, medical negligence, plus rented housing disrepair. In short, when you need to make any claim, click on claimspecialists.co.uk or call 01582 733 222.
For the tastiest sizzling steaks around, book now for Taurus Luton Boot Street, LU1 2EP. And not just for the best grass-fed and dry-hung aged halal steaks, as Taurus Luton also serve amazing chicken dishes, burgers, sumptuous sides, salads and vegetarian options, with mouth-watering mocktails too. All this and with excellent service. View the menu, book your table, or even party or celebration event at taurusluton.co.uk or call 01582 750 213.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम किरण है। कोट कश्मीर ऑर्फन रिलीफ ट्रस्ट मेरा एक खूबसूरत घर है जहां मेरे साथ सैकड़ों यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की तालीम व तरबियत और पुरसुकून माहौल में परवरिश हो रही है, और ये सब कुछ आपके तावन से मुमकिन है। अल्लाह से दुआ है कि अल्लाह करीम आपको सदा सलामत रखे, और उम्मीद है कि आप इसी तरह अपना प्यार, मोहब्बत और तावन जारी रखेंगे। कोट UK office 0300123774 court.org.uk.
Are you thinking of starting a podcast or looking to give your podcast a new home? Why not hire Inspire FM's dedicated recording studio with rates starting at just £25 per booking? Our podcast studio is a fully functional, acoustically treated space for up to 4 people, and it's set up and ready to use as soon as you arrive. For more information or to inquire about booking, email us at info@inspirefm.org or send us a DM on our social media accounts at InspireFM Luton.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. This is me, Baby Bilal.
And it's me, Furman Giles.
We are here to tell you about the kids' show that you must tune into, because Brother Khalil, I don't know where he is. He's not here at the moment. Furman Giles, where do you think he is?
Oh, well, I think he's probably sleeping somewhere.
Oh, okay then. Well, whatever cases, guys, make sure you tune into
the Kids Round Show
and Inspire 105.1 FM.
The UK's finest.
Okay, then.
Hold on a minute. Sorry I'm late, guys. Oh. Yeah, let me do the jingle now. Okay. This is Khalil Muhammad and...
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the second half of tonight's show on healthy family dynamics, and thank you for joining me on Inspire 105.1 FM. This is the Parenting Show, hosted by myself, Sister Naveed. Joining me for tonight's show are Sister Shabina and Sister Saira. The first half, we just ran away with Saira and Shabina, and we were just unpacking what it means to have a healthy family dynamic. We touched upon the fact that how families can have their unique and individualness, but at the same time, the concept of a healthy aspect to your family is something that is quite generic. And what makes it generic is your foundations, I'd say. So if your reference point is Islam, that's the universal reference point. And within that universal reference point, there are foundations and pillars. And if you understand those foundations and pillars of respect, of, built upon Iman and Taqwa and Tawheed and so on, then you start to personalize it to the individual and personal case studies of what is my situation with my family, what is my situation with my sibling. And as you both said in the first half of the show, that as siblings, you know what's going to annoy each other. You absolutely know that. Or you might have some form of sibling rivalry. One of you touched upon favoritism and not demonstrating that as parents. And it's haram to demonstrate favoritism. You have to conceal it if you do have a favorite amongst your children, because that will impact the dynamics of your household. And naturally, you will get on with maybe some of your children better than others because of the character similarities and differences. And some of your children maybe, or children that your birth children or that you're a guardian of, may be more challenging for you than others. Some may have more issues in terms of following the boundaries, the foundations, and the household rules. And this can be quite difficult. But nevertheless, the common elements of what makes a healthy dynamic within a household is really, really important. So when we give reference to the household rules and boundaries, they're going to come from either a very secular point of view, your personal freedoms, your benefits and harms, your interests, what's in it for me, what's more favored to me, or it's literally going to be about the rules and the laws and the sense of accountability that you connect back and you demonstrate back and you practice. You have to practice it yourself and make it better within yourself, about your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how this household is a household that's going to make effort to function in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that process of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sarah, you touched upon, things related to habits, behaviors, and differences, and about how even yourself, as you were growing up, there was differences between you and your sister, and how they've disappeared now as adults. Not only have you maybe, moved out, got married, life's gone in different directions, and that's brought you closer together. But your as siblings, you could still have those niggling behaviors still there deep down. For example, if I was to live with my sister, there's certain cloths that she uses to clean a kitchen with that I just don't like to use. And I use a different kind of a cloth. And I know that I would want to use what I use because I think that's the right one, and she'd want to use hers. Now, if you're living together, you have to find the common ground of the balance between, the compromise. And that's what we can lack. Now, when we lack the sense of compromise, is usually because my need, my way is the better way. And this attitude of my way is the better way, and the way I'm doing it is the way it should be done. This robust attitude, it comes from the sense of, subconsciously even maybe within you, that you're more important than the other person, or you're better than the other person. And when we're living together as families, it can cause lots of problems within us. So that mentality, that attitude of compromise needs to be built, and it needs to be built in a form of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I like for my Muslim brother or sister what I like for myself. And if I want what I think is right to be upheld in the household, then what they want should also be upheld. If it's all within the halal, we need to find a compromise in how to move forward with this. And then that needs to be modeled. Empathy needs to be modeled. Respect needs to be modeled. Self-control needs to be modeled. That appropriate behavior needs to be modeled within a healthy family by the the leaders of that household, the shepherds of that household, which is the parents. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
I'm just thinking, when you're living together, as you've touched upon, you have to compromise. It's not always your way. I think one of the things that I was thinking is, a lot of the time we don't listen. I think communication, we just want to say our bit, but we don't listen effectively. I think some of us don't know how to listen. So I think that's really important as well, that, as a parent, listen to your child. Maybe their needs are not being met. I think, as you said, that whatever we do, if we want respect, we have to show respect. That we have to demonstrate that. We have to be role models. If we want our kids to, do certain act, we have to do that ourselves as well. So, because our children are looking at us all the time, and they're observing, and they also, they're going to do the same thing. So my oldest one is 13 now, alhamdulillah. And I think sometimes, my family, when they see him, they're just like, he does the same thing as you. He'll smile the same way as you. He'll, just little things that he'll do the same as you. Yeah, just small behaviors. And I don't notice that, but my family does. So,
and it's modeling. It's modeling that behavior, isn't it?
And it's absorbing as well. They're absorbing. They're like a sponge. Like, they're absorbing everything around them, and they don't know if it's right or wrong. But they're absorbing. When they're adults, they'll know what is right and wrong. But at the moment, they don't know what you're doing. The behavior that you're doing in front of them is right or wrong.
And then whatever you're doing, whatever you're teaching, whatever you're demonstrating, whatever you're modeling, eventually it becomes a habit for the youth. And as they're growing up into young adults, they'll take that with them into the classrooms. They will take that. And I say that because you're both teachers. So you see hundreds and hundreds of children, Monday to Friday, 9 to 3. And you see how different children are behaving in different ways. And then maybe at parents' evenings, or when you have parent-teacher meetings, maybe at times you can see where the child gets that behavior from.
I think I would just like to add, I know,
go ahead.
It's I don't wait for the parent evening. Sometimes if I see a good behavior, I phone the parents. So we've been told that, communicate with parents. If there's good behavior, communicate with parents, give them like praise call. If there is any behavior that has been, and Shabina would agree as well, if there is any problems, that are occurring, for example, a child's not bringing in certain things every day. Why is that? Or behavior, and just communicating, and we can see if there is a challenging parent. We see that it's not the child, it is the parent. So
what are your thoughts, Shabina?
I mean, sometimes you can see it. Like, sometimes the disruptive children, that who they are, and when they come in with their parents, it's really sad, but you do judge them. And you can see, okay, this is where they're going to get the same sort of habits from. Their home life is difficult, and their home life is, if they're home a lot of the time, and if that's what they're witnessing, how am I going to change a child? How am I going to direct them? You question that. So I think it's 2 and 2. We, as parents and as teachers, we have to obviously work together, and then you'll see how.
There is an element, I absolutely agree with you, Shabina, of the both, because one can argue that the primary years of the child, from the baby up until the age of schooling, is with the parent. That's the first exposure. And then after that, you are thrown into an environment where there's hundreds of other children that come from other backgrounds, other family dynamics, and that will influence the child as they grow. The teachers will influence the child as they grow as well. And I think sometimes even teachers don't realize how much of an influence they have on the young, tender minds of the youth, and how much some of those kids could be role modeling yourselves as teachers. And therefore there's an onus of responsibility and an onus of accountability as well, especially from a Islamic aspect as Muslims. Even as teachers, teachers have the same honor and respect as similar to parents. And that's because their responsibility and their exposure is so great to the children as well. So modeling that empathy, that self-control, that appropriate behavior, I suppose even in the classrooms, and I don't know, as this is becoming more of a teacher thing than, well, as well as a family thing. But do you ever go home and reflect upon, if it was a challenging class on a particular day? God, how could I have done that better? Or I need to improve in this or that. Do you review yourselves regularly?
Just every day.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That would be every day. Yeah, after every lesson. When it's a good lesson, you pat yourself in the back, and you think, okay, that was good. But when it was challenging, you do think about it.
Yeah.
You do think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think sorry, Sarah, do you want to add something?
No, I just think because I've come newly to teaching, I just have anxiety. If I've had like a challenging class, I would have anxiety, like to have that class again. I
was going to say, do you feel that you, because you're both parents, mashallah, and when you look to the kind of reflection you do on your classrooms because you're both fairly new teachers as well. So do you feel that you were doing that self-reflection on your parenting and your family dynamics before you became teachers?
No, I think it's an eye-opener when you become like a teacher. You understand actually a lot of things about your own child, your children. Like sometimes I'll have parents complain, our child's been shouted at, or they've done this, but then I reflect that maybe my son has come home and said the same thing, but it's actually not true. Maybe the teacher might have shouted because of something. Just an example. And to get away, children do a lot of things, so that's just one example.
Yeah. What about yourself, Shabina? Do you feel that you've become more of a reflective parent, or do you think you already had that and you just took it into your work environment and you've enhanced with it in different areas?
As a reflective parent,
as a reflective teacher, reflective parent, do you think you've learned anything new? Well, because teaching's new, isn't it? It's something you've just gone into.
Not really. I think in terms of my parenting skills, I think I have taken that on to my teaching skills. Academically, how my children are doing, I think I've opened up with that, learned a lot with that.
Okay.
How they're improving, what are they doing in that sense. But my I would say my parenting skills have enhanced my teaching skills, I would say. I think I think that's helped it. But before being a parent, I don't think I reflected at all.
Really? Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean reflected at all? On yourself?
About raising children, about behaviors of people. I don't think I reflected about. Reflected on that. I've just got on with life, I think.
Okay, that's interesting, because from an Islamic aspect, we're all people that are examples. Everything is a form of dawah, isn't it? So even the fact that there's the expression of before we go to bed we should think and reflect, and when we wake up we should thank Allah, and we should think and reflect and ponder about what we aim to do, and at night whether we've achieved that. So it's really interesting, because thinking, and I think maybe this is the one of the main points of tonight's show, that a healthy family dynamic requires thinking, and thinking is something that human beings progress with. If we don't think, we don't progress, and we've got to constantly be reviewing relationships, because human life is based upon relationships, and therefore every single realm of relationship that we step into, whether we're teaching somebody about an Islamic principle, or whether we're learning to cook, or whether we're covering and dressing in a particular way, there has to be thought behind. What am I doing? How am I explaining this? And how have I done? How have I achieved in the faraid of my life? Going back to that foundation. And it can, like yourselves are saying, it could come into all of us in different aspects and different realms, whether it comes into you when you have your first child, whether it comes into you when you start that job, and you're thrown into the deep end with maybe other of hundreds of kids, and you're thinking, oh my God, now, like Cyrus said, I can see that maybe my child could be thinking this, doing this, behaving like this, having this issue going on, and it opens up the different dynamics. And inshallah, for some of us, just coming into the deen maybe, and just really questioning the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do I actually believe in him, could create that thinking and pondering character and personality within us, where we're constantly thinking and reflecting that, how have I been? What can I improve? What can I change? How do I feel about people not liking me? How do I feel about how people might judge me or misunderstand me when I say no to doing something that they've asked me to do for them? That means so much to them, but I feel that I can't do this, and I should be allowed to say no. And the repercussions of maybe that on that relationship, or the opinions of people about you in the community or society, and people around you that matter to you. So it builds that strength, it builds that stamina, it builds that motivation within you, and it goes back to modeling. That once you start to model appropriate behavior of maybe standing tall even if people disagree with you, if you know that this is the haq, this is the correct from an Islamic perspective, maybe modeling the behavior of having made a mistake and having to go and apologize to someone, and you're feeling really, really small about this, and you're anxious about this. Even anxiety in itself, demonstrating that you're anxious about that interview, or you're anxious about if you're a speaker to go and deliver a speech, and so on and so forth. So hardworking, I think that's really important in this society, especially where kids just want everything readily available, that we've all worked hard to achieve or to get to where we are within halal. And when you want to have a halal rizq, it doesn't come easy. It's a struggle. And the choices of, good and bad and right and wrong and legal and illegal and criminal and correct, and, within that realm of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think the thinking behind the purpose of our life as well, that connection always there, that, whether they're studying in their rooms, whether they're struggling to understand a concept of, I don't know, science or a maths, equation, that poetry piece, it's about modeling the fact that, hang on a second, we go through a learning process, we go through pushing boundaries to expand, and then we bounce back as bigger and stronger, and it's all good. Struggle is good, and this is something that we need to be demonstrating. I don't think we can use the word demonstrating enough tonight, as parents and guardians, rather than shrugging our children off, rather than being happy that they're locked away in the bedroom, where I get a bit of, just time to myself and recuperate, and the strain and the stress that you as a parent or guardian might be carrying from your personal life, or your own family, or your in-laws, or your workplace, or your financial responsibilities that you have upon your shoulder. It's just taking that time out to communicate with the youth is so important. And I go back to laboring on the point of listening, like I said, Sarah. Listening to the youth is so important. It's part of the healthy dynamics. You have to hear them, not just listen to them and let them, what they've said, just be voices that have gone over your head, and that hasn't touched you. Even if you think it's irrelevant, their problem at school with their friend, or their sibling issue that they're having, because you're thinking, I went through that. I used to have these run-ins with my sibling, and we're okay now. But you have to be able to nurture listening and demonstrate to them once again the respect that you have of actually taking time out, of being fair and being age appropriate, and having those rules that run across your family for everyone. So then, therefore, you can then have expectations, because you're demonstrating this, you're living by this, you're showcasing this, and you're communicating it as well to avoid any form of confusion or chaos that might occur within your household, or they might take out into institutions such as schools, where teachers have to then deal with the repercussions of the unhealthy environment that could be stemming from home. The unhealthy dynamic could be outside world, but it could be the household. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've thought of loads of things actually.
Go on. I hope you're
my
making
mind
notes.
went wandering. My mind went wandering. I was just thinking about actually a little situation that I had with my son, who's 7. We went shopping yesterday, and there was a shop, cancer research, and he read the sign, and he goes, and then he said to me, "Oh, Mom, do you know Allah said that there's a cure for every disease?" He read that cancer research, and I was like, "Yeah, Allah did say that." And people are researching this. People are researching a cure to cancer, and then I said, maybe when you grow up, it might be you. So school is very important. It might be you that finds the cure. Isn't that amazing? So that's what was going through my head, just like making that connection when we have these conversations with our children, not just dismissing them or them just reading a sign, just saying something, making that connection, making them think is so important, making them trigger a thought in their head about the future, about what's going to happen later on is so important. And I think that's what I was thinking about while you were talking.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Sorry. I was just thinking more about, if there's not a healthy, like a family dynamic, what happens then as in terms of like classroom, when I see like a student not, there in the classroom, and if there's any safeguarding issues or, what could be going, and I think a lot of the times as adults, we can hide away our emotional stress and, what's going on. But I think with children, they can't hide as much as adults, and their behaviors show that something has happened. So when I see like a child not happy or is doing something that they shouldn't, I always question why and what's happened, and I think there's also always a reason that why a child is behaving like that. It could be that a parent's going through divorce. So recently one of the students in my form, I have a year 7 form, so the parents were going through divorce, and they've alerted the school, and the child was missing out a lot of days. So we were worried, so we questioned them, and he came back and he was just anxious. He was he was saying, he was just having like outbursts of like breakdown and stuff. So mental well-being, I think it affects a lot when parents are not there for their child emotionally.
And I think as we approach the end of this show, believe it or not, there's just 2 minutes left, and just wrapping it up and bringing it together, that realities such as separation and divorce and death and loss, and these things are a part of life, and they're happening everywhere on a daily basis. But it's about how we nurture the attention to every single individual of the family. But at times like divorce, for example, or death, we can sometimes forget that the young minds, the tender minds, the growing minds, they might be neglected. And this is why family dynamics matter. This is why they're important to know that you're having clear communication. There's clear stability within the household. There's roles reciprocation taking place. And there's a common feeling of cohesion and warmth within that household. And these are the rules from an Islamic perspective. We have to learn to listen, to forgive, to respect the differences, to show affection to the young, to show respect to the elders, to have these boundaries and have that sense of accountability connected back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if we're going through stages of divorce, for example, that was a dynamic that existed in the household of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Zaid radiallahu anhu and Zainab bin Jash divorced. But you have to read about the honorable manner of that divorce and the respectful manner of that divorce. One can argue they didn't have children involved, but there was still a healthy dynamic that existed. Asma radiallahu anha and Zubair ibn Awam radiallahu anhu were a couple that had their differences, but they were people that lived together with their differences in a healthy family dynamic, raising healthy children, inshallah, that prospered in the future as the children of Sahaba. So this just gives us the beginning of the understanding of the fact that, yes, we can be making mistakes, but also showing that we can forgive in a healthy way as well. All humans err and they all learn and they all grow. but it's how we handle these differences that's really important. I just want to end very quickly with the Tirmidhi hadith. He does not belong to us who does not show mercy to our young ones and respect to our old ones, who does not recommend what is reputable and prohibits and does not prohibit what is disreputable. So inshallah, on that, I'd like to say Jazakallah khair to both of you. I'd like to say Jazakallah khair to the listeners. Please forgive us for any shortcomings or mistakes, and do keep us in your du'as. Aquli qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Coming up next, English Talk Series. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum.